everyone. This is Anne
Hello.
from Read It Again Bookstore in Swanee, Georgia. And today I have with me Mary Alice Monroe. Hi, Mary Alice. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. I'm delighted to be here. I'm in North Carolina today, not South Carolina. Joyful to
That's
see you.
wonderful. Thank you for being here. To start, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am the author of 27 novels. This is my 27th. And I think most people know of the Beach House series, and I'm very proud of it. It's 20 years in existence, and they've all been New York Times hit. The last one, which we're celebrating, is behind me. You can see The Summer of Lost and Found, which just came out on May 11th. And we'll talk about that book. I have, I have I've been fortunate and blessed to win many awards and accolades, but I think what matters the most to me is that I think I've made a difference, that through my stories, the novels are set against an endangered species or an environmental issue, but it's a novel. It's not a nonfiction, it's a novel. But I do feel that my readers have come to not only expect a setting that they can get into and a story world, but also that they're going to learn something. And more importantly, it's going to be accurate. And they come to count on that. So I think that is something about my work that I'm really proud of.
Yes, and the Beach House series is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Before we get started talking about the book, I know that you've been doing virtual as well as live. And I'm kind of curious because we haven't done live yet for author events. So how is it going?
Well, everyone's curious about that. I'm talking to other authors about that too. It's just opening up now. When I came out on May 11th and when we planned the book tour, it was almost all virtual with maybe 8 live events, but all of them 25, 50 tops. But I was very strict about having spacing and wearing masks because when we set it up in February and March, we were afraid for our lives and the lives of the people who came to see me. I would die literally emotionally if one of my readers who came to see me got sick.
Mm-hmm.
It's a community. But since the CDC opened things up, I'm still aware of variants and we have to be careful. And I think every community knows where they stand. So there's no blanket. But I've had lunch now for 125 people.
Wow.
And even though it was a big room and they were required to wear masks when they got in line, people bought tables. So they sat with people they knew and it was so it wasn't strangers. Mm-hmm. And when they got in line, they wore a mask. And when I've spoken in bookstores now, it started out, I think I was the first Barnes & Noble live event since the shutdown. Mm-hmm. And they had people come in with a barricade so they couldn't get physically close to me, but we could take pictures and I could sign the book. And it was so good to see people again. I missed it. Mm-hmm. And going into a bookstore again for everybody. So it's pretty much now we're adding things. I have my middle grade tour coming up and we're adding events because now people don't seem to be as worried because of guidelines. But we're still mindful about washing hands and not touching and no hugging.
Right. Well, let's get started on your book. Oh, here we go. Tell us about the book.
It's, speaking of the pandemic, it's the first, I think it really is the first novel that came out since this began. And I knew when I began the book over a year ago that it was a risky undertaking to do this, but I wasn't afraid. I think actually I was naive at the time, but the way I looked at it is the way I usually write a book, and I'll tell you the story, is, well, I have a research method and a writing method that involves a lot of planning. But for this book, I couldn't do any of that because I wrote the book in real time. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that later. So the story itself is about a family, the Rutledge family. It's an old storied name in Charleston. And they, for the last 20 years in this series, we watch these people grow up from 40, 50s, and now the heroine, Kara, is approaching 60 and has become the matriarch of the family. She owns the beach house. And Linnea is the next generation. And I knew this was about the young people too. I wanted to introduce them. So in the first book, she was the little girl that you saw. Now she's 26. And she's the new heroine that's coming forth in this series. Just for this one book, and I make like a house because you actually do read this book as a standalone. And I think that's really an important point to make. Mm-hmm. Even though it's part of a series, it's like the Mitford series, you can pick up any one and read that story because as an author, you choose to write a beginning, a middle, and an end. But if you like it, you can go back to the beginning and read it in sequence, and you add a lot to it. Now, in The Summer in Lost and Found, Linnea is the young woman who is laid off, furloughed, like so many people. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't know what she's going to do. She has no money, no savings, and she's renting the beach house from her Aunt Kara, who is more a mentor than just an aunt. And Aunt Kara tells her, look, this is the legacy of the beach house. We help women. We lend a helping hand. That's what we do. And so my mother did it for me, and now I'm doing it for you. So don't worry about rent. This is your legacy as long as you live in this house. So that sets the tone for the story where Linnea invites her roommate, a roommate who worked at the aquarium with her. A little testy situation. That was Annabelle. Her brother returns home from England from school where he was studying, and the last thing he wants to do is live with mom and dad. And I think a lot of people can understand that. So he kind of finagles his way in there. And then the love triangle begins because her boyfriend that she has a relationship with is a marine biologist, but he has to go back to England. And now he always planned to come back, but he's just trying to get in under the wire as they're shutting down the airports. And with quarantining, which was a big deal in the pandemic summer, he said, I don't want to go through a hotel. I can't get a hotel. Everything's rented. And of course, he wants to stay with her. And so there's that. But next door, a good friend's house, a woman she always thought of like an aunt. Her son was her former boyfriend, lover. She moved to California with him, and he broke her heart. Mm-hmm. And he shows up. So you have this young woman in this little beach house bringing people in, trying to do the right thing, and she's caught in this love triangle. And next door to her are the generation that's older. You have Kara, who lives across the street in her beautiful house. You have her mother, who lives just next door on Sullivan's Island with her father. And you have immediately next door this woman, Emmy, who's like the aunt, an old woman with Alzheimer's, Flo's, mm-hmm. and John. So you've got a group of people who are the pod. And that's what I was building. We all had our safe group in this COVID. We all had people we trusted that we could rely on, that when we would have dinner with them or sit out in the garden, that we all kept it safe. Mm-hmm. And so against this setting of the pandemic, it's not about the pandemic, it's just a setting. You have all the wartime-like emotions that stir up in the incidents of the relation. It's very character driven. It's a relationship novel. Mm-hmm. All the relationships are tested and new directions. And it's funny. There's some funny scenes. Yeah. The boat scene, the Julia scene, the mother. But there's also emotional scenes. There's sad scenes, of course, mm-hmm. because we went through the gamut. And at the end, each character, I hope it's very inspiring, because going through this spring, summer, they all, when it's time to go, you get a strong sense that they're on the right path. I don't answer the question of what's going to happen, and that's kind of the point. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's going to happen, but I want it to be inspiring. I want a reader to close it, and I hope you did. Mm-hmm. Hey, this really was inspiring.
Absolutely. Another hit. Yeah, another hit. So
Well, what can I say? Thank you.
In the book, you dedicate it to your friends and fiction family.
Yes.
How have they helped you through the pandemic, through all of this?
Amazing. That's why I dedicated the book to them. Well, first of all, as we began Friends in Fiction, and for those of you who might not know what that is, that's the started on Facebook Live. It still is. It's a weekly show and podcast now with 5 authors. So it's me, Mary Alice Monroe, Mary Kay Andrews, Patty Callahan, Kristen Harmel, and Christy Woodson Harvey. In fact, we all have 3 names except for Kristen Harmel. We told her she needs a middle name or something. And because when we do the scripts, she's the only one with 2 letters. So we started with Mary Kay Andrews calling me and Patty and saying, wow, our book tours were canceled. What are we going to do? And just to commiserate. And we were also concerned about the bookstores, especially those indies, because when we go on tour, we talk to you. We bring people come in, not talk to you. We talk to you and the audience, and the bookstores are the ones who bring the books and make it happen. This wasn't happening in the pandemic, so we were really concerned. And we said we invited Kristen and Christy to join us because they were going through the same thing. And my goodness, we took it on Facebook and we thought, well, maybe someone will watch it. Boom! I think we were at the right place at the right time.
And now we needed you.
Thank you. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from a lot of the viewers. Oh, thank you for creating this program for reading. And I also think it's the 5 of us. We have different personalities.
Yep.
We're all different ages. And it's just when we talk, the authors seem to relax more. We have a good time. So it's Wednesday nights, 7 p.m.
Which is why we're closing this interview early so that you can go prep.
I have to host Nancy Thayer tonight.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Well, in the book, Linnea references in here. Let me on a page, and I've marked it. And I love this because my dad used to say this. In life, you have many acquaintances, but consider yourself lucky to have 1 or 2 true friends. Awesome.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I even tell my children and now my grandchildren that too, that, if there's mean girls and, they're getting talk, I said, you will forget them. Don't worry, but you need 1 good friend, 1 really, really good friend or 2, and who get you through the hard times, who you can call up and say, like she did with Annabelle, hey, I just got laid off. Do you have a bottle of wine? Or boyfriend showed up again. Come quick. I mean, you need someone to call like that, which is what happened with Anna and Linnea.
Yeah. So what was your favorite scene of your book?
I know it's funny. It's a scene that I didn't write until the very end. The whole book, I wrote it, as I said, in real time. And so when I wrote it, I was pulling my hair out because all the scenes I wrote were immediate. I couldn't plan for them. And I laughed at the scene with the boys in the boat. And my brother helped me write that one because I needed a guy's perspective. What do guys do on a boat when they're fishing? So he helped me with that. But towards the end, I knew sea turtles are still important in the story. They're a backdrop. And I am still a member of the Sea Turtle volunteer team. So I think that for me, I wanted to bring in towards the end the reassuring consistency of nature. And even though the sea turtle ladies were part of the backdrop, I wanted to get us on the beach. And I think I love the scene where Linnea is sitting it's like midnight. And what I love the nighttime work the best because you don't know what's going to happen, but the air changes. And she's sitting out there with her Aunt Cara, her mentor. And it truly is. Have you been on the beach at really late at night?
I haven't. I want to do that, and I want to wait for the turtle and the hatchlings to.
Oh yeah, but that's when they hatch. Is at night,
that's
not
my
in the
bucket
daytime.
list.
It's weird. It's fabulous. So that's why they're on the beach, is because they're waiting for the nest to hatch. And we do that. We still do because of the light disorientation, which means that the lights from the streets and the houses is sometimes brighter than the lights that are natural, like the sun and the moon and the stars on the water. So it's one of those velvety nights with no stars and moon. And that's why they're sitting there. But it's also very cool because when you're sitting there and the ocean is out there, far out, low tide, you can't see it, but you hear it. That reassuring consistency in and out. And I find that very comforting, and the familiarity of it is important going through what we've all gone through. So when you're on the beach at night, like Kara, and they're sitting there and it's midnight, the air chills and it feels very close. And it's a time for confessions and honest conversations. And at the beginning of the book, if you remember, Linnea was told by Kara, this is your legacy, to lend a helping hand. Mm-hmm. And that was very important during this time. But she took it to heart. And so by the end of the story, she's kind of lost her way. You know, she's tossed between, can I love two men, Team John, Team Gordon, and what am I going to do? And I've lost my job. And she's in turmoil. And to her mind, it's all about what man do I choose? Mm-hmm. And Kara, I think, pointed out to her, you have to take care of yourself. You know, selfish is a good selfishness. Mm-hmm. You can't give anything to anybody if you don't take care of yourself first. And with that wisdom, the old crone's wisdom, Linnea was able to move forward in her life and make the decision for herself that was so critical. And I think a lot of us, that was the whole theme of the book, mm-hmm. is finding yourself, the rediscovery, and learning to live each day as it comes. That was the final message of the book, mm-hmm. to take each day and to appreciate it. So with that scene, my favorite scene, but I wrote it at the very end, you know, because I didn't know what I wanted to say yet.
So yeah, somebody just asked down below, did you know if you were going to go with Team Gordon or Team John? And
no.
No.
The answer is absolutely not, because they're both great guys.
Yes.
He broke her heart. John mm-hmm. had a lot to prove in this book.
Yes.
To even be considered. And Gordon was such a perfect guy in so many ways. Good men. Mm-hmm. But they all, you know, I think ultimately, though, in the end, and I don't want to do spoilers, but ultimately, I like to think that you'll say, yes, of course. But ultimately, in my mind, Linnea is only 26 years old. Mm-hmm. At my age, I look back on that and think, oh, she's a baby. But at 26, you're mature and ready to get married, ready to make decisions. At my age, I'm looking back, slow down.
You have all the time.
Choose wisely. Mm-hmm. And what do you need here and here? What do you need? And that was what Kara was saying. So the end decision of Linnea reflects the inner journey she took in the book. It's what I would have told my own daughters.
So this series now is 7 deep. How have the characters changed and developed from maybe the first one to present?
Tremendously. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've all grown up. Right. I think the most remarkable change is Kara, of course. She's the heroine. And when she came to the Isle of Palms from Chicago because her mother was dying, Lovey, the matriarch, she came ready to stay a week, maybe 2 tops, go back. But she was in a turmoil, emotionally and financially. And she finds out her mother's dying. And this woman who's a lone swimmer, named after the loggerhead sea turtle, Kara, she stays. She falls in love for the first time. So you've watched her go through what it took to not look inward so much as always, well, what do I need to begin to look out? So that by the time 20 years have passed and she's gone through the mill in a lot of these books, her character was tested. And I gave her everything at the end. She deserves it. She's a great woman. Flo is a character I love very much.
Yes, she's very special to me.
She is. And mm-hmm. she was the fiery single woman social worker at the beginning, turtle team leader. And we've watched her age and fall into financial difficulties. And Emmy comes in and buys another Kara's best friend buys the house. And so they make this little grouping of houses. The two houses actually exist in real life, by the way. And as the years have gone by, Flo slips into Alzheimer's. And we've watched it progress, and it declares itself in this book. And this is the time when all the other characters are gathering around trying to protect her, because no one wanted to let someone go into the hospital if they could avoid it. I think I love watching the little kids grow up, and now they're adults. I get to move on with a whole new generation. These are I'm looking at the next generation in my life saying, you're the stewards. Mm-hmm. I want to see what you're going to do to step up. What are your challenges? I'm sure there are going to be a lot of challenges as we all move forward. And I like to have the generations. I want the young people to have their lives impacted, as well as the older generation. This is 3 generations now.
Mm-hmm. Which I love reading about. I picked up the book, and all the characters came back. It was like,
that's what people have said.
Yeah. So
the familiarity. I think that's important now more than ever. Is to have, I know these people. I feel safe, secure. Mm-hmm. How are they doing? They're like friends.
Right.
I felt that way.
I wanted to get caught back up because I hadn't heard from them in a year, and now I needed to know what everybody was doing.
Yeah, so that's how exactly.
Can I only hope that you're not finished with the series?
No, I'm not. I'm putting it on pause right now. And I think what I'm going to do is just wait to see when something triggers I need to write about this because it's on my beach. And the best way to tell this story is on Isle of Palms with the Rutledge family. Okay. And I'll write the next book. So definitely, it won't be too long, but I'm already beginning another book. So I'm writing. Okay. I'm writing.
All right.
Hashtag am writing.
am writing. So tell us just a little bit about this love triangle. And I looked at the time, so I want to keep cognizant of your time. But tell us about the love triangle of John and Linnea and Gordon. You touched on it a little bit, but it is the whole story of the book.
It's the rock because it kind of it brings in young people, and they're all surfers. That's how they get to know each other, and their friends come in from England. If you've read the series, you know all these characters from another book, but you have Pandora, the young woman, comes from England, and she tests. There's a lot of close relationships, and everything's tested because you can't go out to the bar and meet someone else.
Right.
And this time of questioning is so important. And Gordon represents for Linnea all that she loves. He's sort of mimics in many ways Lovey's Russell Bennett from the first book. He came in from off. He's elegant. He has a very strong lineage. He's doing fine work, important work for the planet with his research. So what's not to love? And he looks like Sean Evans from, if you love Sean Evans and you watch the Endeavor series, I mean, what's not to like? But he's reserved, and he loves the Low Country, but maybe not the same way Linnea does. Then you have John, who is the boy next door, who had real issues growing up, but he's a good old Low Country boy, which is a soft spot in my heart. I love myself a good Low Country boy. And so she knows him, and they're all surfing, but she risked everything to go off with him, and he broke her heart. And she came home with her tail between her legs. And mocked or sort of shunned, and she just had to reinvent herself. So here's back, and she doesn't want to see him, but she can't ignore, when you know someone might not be the right one, but you can't help the feelings you have for him. And it put her in a position of not trusting her own instincts so much. It was also amusing because he's trying to win her back big time. He knows he made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And he sends her these paper airplanes, which I love. I loved that.
Yeah.
It was just a little whimsy. He has poetry. It's a way she won't answer text. She's unplugged, won't answer texts, won't answer his emails, won't answer his phone calls. So he resorts to a paper airplane. But I loved that there was this give and take of the men. The boat scene was the two guys finally having it out. It added a lot of emotion and a lot of sensuousness to the book, but really it was there because I wanted this young woman to make a choice. And the choice she makes is for her future. That took a lot of self-reflection. And I like Annabelle's choice at the end. She was part of the COVID couple. A surprise ending there. I wanted everyone to, Kara and David across the street had to make some tough choices. Mm-hmm. They all made tough choices for Flo. But in the end, I would say all of them look back at this period of time like I did. This was me writing as I'm living through all this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In the end, I lived with my sisters up in this mountain house I'm at right now. And we could never have done that if it wasn't for COVID. This whole house living together like this would never have happened if it wasn't for the pandemic. You know, all these going outdoors and trusting one another, being creative and funny and amusing and wonderful ways. We all are coming through this episode called The Pandemic of 2020 and reflecting on what changed in us besides knowing a good sourdough starter recipe. And we all drank a lot of wine, let's be honest. And it was fearful, but we are changed. We look at the world a little differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If anything, I've realized slow down a little bit.
Well, that was thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was the actual message. If I had one thing I wanted to say to my readers in this book through my characters, it was live each day as it comes. There's a scene where she sees the sand, Linnea, and it's untrammeled. It's beautiful. You know, that pristine sand early in the morning or late at night after tide. And when you put your footprint on it, it's going to stay there for a while. And that's the sense, you know, she's moving forward now and she's going to put her footprint in the sand. And what are we going to do? What are we going to choose to do for the rest of our lives?
Mm-hmm. The poems that John references when he's sending the paper airplanes, were those poems that were important to you, or did they just seem to fit the situation at the time?
Both.
Okay.
I have to answer both. One of the things that my sisters and I did when we were up together at this house was every morning we'd wake up and have our coffee, and take a little hot mug, go outside with mountains, you know, no leaves yet, so I could see all the mountains, and we'd read poetry. And so poetry became very important. I always loved poetry. I try to write it, but not so well. And I thought, you know, it was an important part of my life during this, so I put it in the book. My niece came to live with me. She was in the service industry, lost her job, like Linnea and Anna. And I opened up my house here, like Linnea did, and she redirected, went back to school. And I'm watching what people are doing. This is what I do when I study nature, wildlife. I look, no judgment, and I make decisions on what to put in the book.
Mm-hmm. Before we go, I have just a couple of questions, and love the book, but you also have
Thanks, Sharon.
Another one coming out in June, and it is called The Islanders.
I'm so excited.
And it's a middle school book, right? And it's the first of a series?
It's the first of a series. Okay. I've always wanted to write for this audience, which is middle grade, which is anywhere from grades 8, age 8 to 12. Mm-hmm. And depending on the reader, I mean, my adult friends have read this and actually enjoyed it. It's the bottom line is the story about kids getting unplugged. My husband's a child psychiatrist, and he says you really got to unplug those kids because they're on the this or the laptops all the time.
Mhm.
And there's modeling being done by parents and grandparents. You can't be doing this and saying, don't watch the phone. You have to unplug yourself. So this is a wonderful story. It takes place on Deweese Island, which really exists just off Isle of Palms by ferry. It's the only way you can access it by boat. And there are no cars allowed, no stores, there's golf carts. And as you read the story, you realize that grandma doesn't approve of internet for kids. So for these kids, no Wi-Fi. And so you have three children who would not have been friends. An African-American boy from a wealthy family in Atlanta, Jake, who's an army brat, whose father was injured, so he has to spend his summer with his grandmother. And then a little Lovey, who is
Little Lovey.
Little Lovey, who is in the Beach House series.
Oh.
Yes, Little Lovey, who's now 11 years old, and she's in the Beach House series. And she's from Isle of Palms, who has to stay with her aunt during the day because her mama works. So these three kids kind of hang out and become really good friends because they're exploring this wonderful island, and they see alligators and bald eagles, and they get turtles, of course, because they have to do it. They get in a little trouble and have to do turtle duty. And it's by the end of this great summer of exploration and friendship, it's the best summer ever. And I'm thrilled. All over the Southeast and the nation, they're adapting this book into school curriculums now.
Excellent.
And I'm really proud. This book is really.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And you can see, yes, there are turtles. So your kids will learn about
the cover.
It's great cover. Thank you. And I wrote this with Angela May, who is a long time. She started out as an assistant colleague now, and now a co-author. This was a dream for both of us to write middle grade. And the fact that it turned out so well and is being so well received is a special joy. So June 15th, it comes out. So I'll just finish this book tour and I begin the next. Opening up, I hope I get to see y'all as we open up.
Well, I certainly, if you're more than welcome to come to Atlanta and come to read it again, if you have time, I would love for you to come.
Thank you.
And if you want to talk about the Islander, we would be thrilled. Absolutely.
I am honored and I accept right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Kim, you better write this down. I know you need to go because you are actually going to swap places and do what I'm doing. Tonight at 7:00, you're interviewing Nancy Thayer.
I love her. And I would say if people love my books, they will love Nancy Thayer.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about home and family and strong settings. And we're talking about her book, A Family Reunion, because I wrote a short story in Reunion Beach. So there's a lot of similar, there's other beach houses. And I swear to the Lord, heaven above, why do people still write books called The Beach House? I mean, it's like it's taken, folks.
Yeah. And taken in a very good way. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much. You can certainly pick up both Summer of Lost and Found and The Islanders. Obviously, we would love for everybody to come and get it from Read It Again Bookstore, but go and support your indie book stores.
Absolutely.
And you were very nice in sending us book plates. So thank you.
So you have autographed book plates.
Absolutely.
If you order from them, you will get an autographed book.
Right. And we do have them at the store. Right.
Get to support your local store.
Right. So we will be in touch about you coming and talking to the Islanders. I know you need to go. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anissa. Thank you.
We'll be watching you soon. Thank you.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.